President Trump went off script today talking about the violence in Virginia. In a heated and defensive exchange with reporters, he offered support to the white power marchers there.
And he claimed the people who marched against them shared the blame for the deadly violence, calling them the alt-left.
His comments have ignited a firestorm around his presidency and inflamed the issues of race in America.
Let's go to KCAL9's Tom Waite. He shows you the presidential news conference that occurred today and, of course, the reaction as well. Tom?
Yeah, Jeff and Lena, this was a presidential news conference you just have to see to believe. It was very unusual. It was supposed to be about infrastructure spending, but the subject changed quickly to Charlottesville. The president became defensive, angry, and combative and said those who came out to march against white supremacists deserved some of the blame for the violence.
What about the alt-left that came charging at the, as you say, the alt-right? Do they have any semblance of guilt?
President Trump laying some blame for the violence in Charlottesville with people who came out to rally against white supremacists. The protests turned violent, punching, clubbings, beatings, and then deadly when one of the white nationalists plowed his car into the crowd, killing one and injuring 19.
You had a group on one side that was bad, and you had a group on the other side that was also very violent. And nobody wants to say that, but I'll say it right now. You had a group on the other side that came charging in without a permit, and they were very, very violent. Well, those people, all of those people, excuse me, I've condemned neo-Nazis. I've condemned many different groups, but not all of those people were neo-Nazis, believe me. Not all of those people were white supremacists by any stretch. Those people were also there because they wanted to protest the taking down of a statue, Robert E. Lee.
Reaction was intense and immediate. Former KKK Grand Wizard David Duke tweeted, "Thank you, President Trump, for your honesty and courage to tell the truth about Charlottesville and condemn the leftist terrorists in BLM Antifa." But others claimed he gave cover to violent racists and failed to uphold the moral authority of the presidency. Senator Marco Rubio tweeted, "The organizers of the events which inspired and led to the Charlottesville terrorist attack are 100% to blame for a number of reasons." He then listed 5 reasons, including the groups today use the same symbols and same arguments of Nazi and KKK groups responsible for some of the worst crimes against humanity ever. Democrats were quick to condemn the president's latest comments. California Senator Kamala Harris tweeted, "Many sides is what my parents and thousands of others fought against during the civil rights movement." And Senator Elizabeth Warren tweeted, "The President of the United States just defended neo-Nazis and blamed those who condemned their racism and hate. This is sick."
Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us!
Vice News shot this video of white supremacists marching through the University of Virginia on the first night of protests. The video makes clear marchers' intent and ideology as they carried torches and shouted, "Jews will not replace us," among other racist chants. In the immediate aftermath of these marches and the violence Saturday, the president did not condemn by name neo-Nazis or other hate groups that were in the crowd until Monday, when he called them out by name. Today, he defended the delay in a testy exchange with reporters.
I wanted to make sure, unlike most politicians, that what I said was correct, not make a quick statement. The statement I made on Saturday, the first statement, was a fine statement, but you don't make statements that direct unless you know the fact. It takes a little while to get the facts.
The president's unscripted comments came as his new chief of staff, General John Kelly, was trying to rein in chaos at the White House. Kelly was seen staring at the ground, stone-faced, as the president spoke. Meanwhile, in the wake of President Trump's comments, there are concerns he could add fuel to a movement of hate. Rabbi Marvin Heyer of LA's Wiesenthal Center.
The president should have said right from the outset, soon as this terrible tragedy unfolded, it is the fault of the Nazis, of the Klan, and of the extreme alt-right. Nobody should make any mistake in saying that, oh, you know, you have demonstrators on both sides and that sometimes violate the law. That's true, but it has nothing to do with Nazis, nothing to do with the Klan, and nothing to do with lunatics.
The president also argued that George Washington and Thomas Jefferson owned slaves and asked if their monuments should be taken down as well, as many cities are doing with Confederate statues now. And now NBC is reporting the president was scheduled to make remarks only and not take questions. White House sources said they were stunned when the president went, quote, rogue in front of the press. Jeff, back to you.